the pay-as-you-say scheme is about to be introduced and has been piloted. The uptake may not be great because people are obviously concerned, because of the budgetary constraints. Would you feel that it would be a good idea to look at ring fencing some of the carbon tax income for grants for retrofitting buildings in Ireland? That would be the first question I'd ask you.
It's a difficult question for us to pronounce on. On the one hand, in general, there's a strong view internationally that carbon taxes at the level they tend to be set at are doing more work raising revenue than dramatically changing the use of fossil fuels, and that part of that revenue is a resource for addressing climate change through other means than the tax itself, whether it's supporting research and development on clean energy or the kind of thing you refer to. And in general, there's a kind of a logic in that. At the same time, we're aware of how sensitive the issue of hypothecation of taxes seems to be within the system. So I think we'd be reluctant to make a firm statement on that, but because there's so many, in some ways, there's so many other calls as well. But there isn't, as I say, in a general sense, there's a logic in seeing revenue from these kind of sources as a resource to address the problems. But I'm reluctant to take a strong view on hypothecation.
Just, Doctor, in, I think page 246 within the report, to say that levying a carbon tax is more supportive of economic growth and employment than increasing income tax. That's a fairly definite statement. And what I'm kind of saying to you is, would it be progressive in looking at levying a carbon tax of ring fencing that and targeting it directly at certainly people that have fuel poverty and retrofitting? An awful lot of our buildings and homes have been built in the 50s and 60s with very low standards, and targeting that money at retrofitting those homes to reduce their energy consumption.
Well, I think there's a strong case for that, and indeed, I think fuel poverty has been a key part of our policy and the work of, say, the SEAI, and absolutely has to be. And we know that the reluctance to extend the carbon tax to coal and peat reflected in part that distributive concern. And I think our view would be that were that to be the tax to be extended to those fuels, then the fuel poverty, the distributive effect absolutely has to be addressed through other means. So,
and just look, like the I certainly caught the actually kind of well over doubling the grant from 3 to 8. You would see that as an element, because if you're going to increase the grant from 3,000 to 8,000, as it says in your report, you could possibly do. And the plastic bag levy was so effective for environmental reasons why that money is spent. If we looked at taking part of the carbon tax and targeting at retrofitting, like the cost-benefit analysis, it seems to upping the insulation of homes will reduce our carbon footprint very effectively.
Yeah. Actually, I think the increase, I think, in talking about, I think the increase, I think, in 3,000 to 8,000, I think there we were talking about the investment, that's the type of average investment that we would like to see, but we weren't proposing that a grant at that level. Are we, I suppose, well, we took account of, well, the current policy direction, which has signalled that grants, the plan is to, well, the mainstream grants that, for energy efficiency, that they're to be phased out. I think the plan is that they would end by the end next year, and then to be replaced with or partially replaced with the pay-as-you-save scheme, so that we're proposing that, well, that's the type of investment that we would like to see supported. Or that's, but not I mean, I suppose aware of the public finance constraints, we were not with a straight grant at that level.
Could I just add you there, the targets, like predicted Ireland's 2020 targets will be reached. Is this including the forest sink? There's been a fall off in relation to forestry planting. And, with the report, whereabouts are you with that element? Because the forestry sink is allowed under Kyoto targets, but not under the EU 2020 targets. So could you just explain a little bit more in relation to your thinking on that?
Okay, that's, I mean, and I suppose our focus in this report was on looking at ways in which our current EU targets, the 2020 targets, could be met. And it is, I mean, it's something of a quirk of the approach that forestry isn't counted, and it's part of the land use change, isn't counted in defining those 2020 targets. So when well, on the figures we discussed, no, we didn't factor in the savings that you get from forestry. I mean, clearly, and I suppose, well, clearly from a long-term perspective, and as we also say, I mean, we should go beyond thinking about purely in terms of compliance. But so clearly, it's, I mean, forestry, there is a significant effect there, and that does need to be part of longer term policy. But we didn't, so for the purposes of this report, we didn't go into it.
Would you be concerned about the fall-offs in itself, just from your own experience and studying the fall-off of planting and forestry as a carbon sink?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would be concerned, yes.
And just one other brief question, because it's been within the media as well as the whole kind of sugar beet industry. And now we're looking at bioethanol and things like that. And I know when the measurements are not taken, you don't measure the inputs like fertilizer and things like that in it. But do you think there's an argument now for a sustainable sugar beet industry in Ireland? With a byproduct, because you look at the reduction of imported fuels and possibly getting up to a carbon neutral. It's touched on in your report, but I'd just be interested in your views on on reintroducing the sugar beet industry within Ireland with a different focus.
I think we'd have to come back to the Deputy on the committee on that. I don't think we're in a position to.
Okay, fair enough. Deputy Ben has a question.